Good day and welcome. Today, we are continuing our series on World War I. In this series, we are learning about reasons why World War I broke out. Experiences in World War I. Women in Britain during World War I. The defeat of Germany and the Treaty of Versailles. Today, we will discuss experiences in World War I, including propaganda, conscription as well as conscientious objectors. Here's a question for you: what is propaganda? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Stick around until the end for some thought-provoking questions to test your understanding. Challenge yourself and see how well you've grasped the material. It's a fantastic way to boost your confidence. Please do not forget to like and subscribe so that you do not miss our weekly uploads. Let's get started. At the outbreak of World War I in 1914, there was no need for conscription. Over 3 million men volunteered to serve in the British Armed Forces during the first 2 years of the war. The initial rush to enlist was driven by a sense of patriotism and the belief that the war would be over quickly. Young men were eager to fight for their country and defend British values. As the war dragged on, casualties increased and enthusiasm for volunteering decreased. It became clear that voluntary recruitment would not provide enough soldiers. The British government first used propaganda, then conscription for men to join the armed forces. Before conscription became law, the British government worked hard to persuade men to volunteer. Propaganda was used by the British government not only to encourage men to join the armed forces, it continued to play a crucial role throughout the war to maintain public support and keep morale high. There was enormous pressure from the British government to sign up. As we have already seen, to encourage men to join the armed forces, the British government began a massive propaganda campaign. The armed forces included the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Let's get into the details of this propaganda campaign. Propaganda is the misuse of information to promote a particular cause or point of view. You can also say propaganda is information that is spread for the purpose of promoting a cause. Propaganda has the following characteristics. It is persuasive communication. It is a form of persuasive communication which influences people's beliefs, opinions, and emotions. It may be true or false, but it is always deliberately used to influence people. Propaganda has emotional appeal. It appeals to the heart or emotions, not to the mind or reason. It uses fear, exaggeration, and lies to get people to support an idea or cause. During World War I, propaganda was used extensively to shape public perception and encourage enlistment, that is, to join the armed forces. In World War I, propaganda posters and newspaper advertisements were created to demonize the enemy and show that Germans were evil. British posters and newspapers often referred to Germans as Hun, which was an insulting term used by the British for the Germans in World War I. Propaganda told men they had a moral duty to fight for good, the British, against the bad, the Germans. And men had a duty to protect loved ones, men had a duty to protect women and children. The British government had to persuade people to believe that it was part of their patriotic duty to fight in World War I, be prepared to die or be injured, support the war effort on the home front, work together to defeat the enemy. Patriotic means having a love of a country and willingness to sacrifice for it. During World War I, this concept of patriotism was heavily promoted to inspire men to join the armed forces and support the war effort. This World War I cartoon, published in Life magazine on July 25, 1915, is a plain piece of anti-German propaganda. The drawing shows a German soldier, wearing a spiked helmet, casually marching with his rifle slung over his shoulder. Disturbingly, the rifle bayonet is shown impaling what appear to be innocent civilians, including women and children. Alleged brutalities were widely reported and exaggerated in Allied propaganda, helping to demonize the enemy and rally public support for the war effort. The purpose of the cartoon was to 1. Demonize of the enemy. The cartoon is meant to dehumanize and vilify the Germans, portraying them as monsters and barbaric. 2. Rally public support. The cartoon seeks to stir anger and encourage people to support the Allied war effort. It played on emotions of fear and disgust, strengthening public opinion in favor of the war. 3. Emotional manipulation. The image of a soldier killing women and children is designed to evoke strong emotions, using shock to persuade viewers of the moral righteousness of opposing Germany. This type of propaganda was common during World War I, as both sides used media to sway public opinion and demonize the enemy. Can you analyze the following World War I propaganda? When war broke out, each side expected the war to last only a few months. At the beginning of the war, thousands of young men eagerly lined up at recruiting centers throughout the British Empire. They volunteered to serve their country and crush the Germans or the Level Hun. As the war dragged on, millions of men died and were wounded on both sides. The British Army needed a continuous supply of fresh soldiers to keep fighting. So many men died in the first 2 years of the war that the British government decided in 1916 to introduce conscription. Volunteers and propaganda efforts alone were not enough to keep up with the heavy losses, so conscription ensured that more men were available to fight, even if they didn't want to join. Conscription meant that all single men between the ages of 18 and 41 could be called up for military service unless they were widowed with children or ministers of religion. Conscription is compulsory military service. Men were required by law to join the military, whether they wanted to or not. During World War I, around 16,000 men in Britain refused to join the army or fight. These men were known as conscientious objectors. The term conscientious objector refers to someone who refuses to serve in the armed forces because their beliefs, principles, or sense of right and wrong tell them that fighting is wrong. This decision was often a very difficult and unpopular one. There were several types of conscientious objectors. Pacifists who were against war in general. A pacifist is a person who does not believe it is right to fight in a war. Pacifists believed that violence and killing were never the right solutions, no matter the reason. Political objectors who did not consider the government of Germany to be their enemy. Religious objectors who believed that war and fighting in a war was against their religion. Certain people refused to fight because their religious beliefs told them that killing was wrong. For example, Quakers, a Christian group, are known for their strong stance on peace. Not joining the army was seen as unpatriotic during the war. Treatment of conscientious objectors was bad. There was social pressure and objectors faced intense social stigma. Many people believed that those who refused to fight were cowards, people who were afraid, or traitors, people who betrayed their country. Society pressured men to join the war. Many had thought that the war would be over very quickly. But it soon became clear that the war was going to last for a long time. More and more soldiers were dying. The government needed more and more soldiers. The British government became more critical of conscientious objectors. Many objectors were imprisoned or sent to labor camps for refusing to fight. The White Feather Campaign was started by a Navy officer, Admiral Charles Fitzgerald. A white feather was a symbol of cowardice. Before the introduction of conscription, the women were encouraged to hand out white feathers to men who were not in uniform. If a man was given a white feather, it was meant to shame him into joining the British Army. We have come to the end for today. But before we go, please attempt the following questions before the answers pop up. You can pause the video as you go. This is an important section that consolidates what you have learned. In the next video, we will be looking at some aspects of in World War I, including the trench warfare on the Western Front as well as music and poetry. Be sure to check out the link for this in the description for more videos. Also, please do not forget to like and subscribe so that you do not miss our weekly uploads. Otherwise, thank you for watching and keep well.